What do you see in terms of conflict today? How is conflict the same as it always has been? And how is it maybe different given the pandemic and all the changes that our workplaces have gone through?
Well, what's the same about it is that conflict will always exist. And I jokingly say, I can have conflict without anybody else in the room. Because if I'm divided in my mind about something, like if I know I need to have a conversation, but I'm afraid to hurt feelings, or I'm afraid I won't get the deal, and I'm having to manipulate to actually make something happen, there's a conflict already within me that's going to come out eventually. So that has always been the same. That will never change because we're human beings, and we're going to be divided sometimes. And in our own division, we'll have those divisions with other people. What has changed is social media has expanded our ability to have choices, the choices of having our own public broadcast system and to believe whatever we want to believe and to have our opinion, whether it's grounded in fact or not, and to be offended over things we haven't gotten curious about. So therefore, it has expanded exponentially, and we're going to see even more conflict. In fact, in the book, I brought this up, and my editor disagreed with me. And I guess we all have a bias to see what we want to see. But what I noticed, and I brought this forward in the book, is that I was on social media. A very well-known 7-figure, 8-figure entrepreneur had posted something about the pandemic, about the masks, but I couldn't tell what she meant. Was she for masks? Was she against it? Did she think it was conspiracy? It was very vague in my mind as to what she was saying. And I saw the thread, and it went like this. Spot on, sister. Glad someone else is not being a sheep. We need to be kings and lions, and we need to take the lead. And someone said, what do you mean? Who are the sheep and who are the lions?
Oh, interesting.
And they were arguing about something that nobody had clarity on, which is one of the tenets of my work, is that in all drama, there's always a lack of clarity. And there was arguments, and it went into calling people names like, you're just privileged. There's privilege right there speaking to something. I mean, it's like all of a sudden there's name calling, and one or two people, there was 600 posts at the time of my looking at that. There was thousands by the time I finished the book.
Wow.
But throughout that, you saw name calling, you saw disrespect, you saw confusion, you saw people saying, why are we engaging? We don't even know what she means. This is cryptic. This is to her tribe. And I thought to myself, she's smart. She understands that algorithms of argument like this creates more exposure. And so I believe people are using conflict for their own benefit now because they understand technology. So yes, I think it's going to increase dramatically. And that's why it's so important for leaders to get crystal clear on how they want to show up.
Okay, so that is a fantastic segue. So now let's talk about the workplace and let's talk about leaders. So what are some of the challenges you see in terms of how leaders mishandle conflict? So let's talk about the problems first, and then we'll see what solutions we might have.
Oh, there's so many. So you just interrupt me wherever you want to go. One problem is within the culture. And so, for example, if someone at a high level calls me and says, well, we've got lots of conflict and it's elevating, we're just about to get into a lawsuit, could you come and help the directors or the managers, like do a workshop, do a program? But if I look at it, I will see that the system itself is part of the problem, in that the middle level managers have never been trained. They've never been mentored. They've never been supported. So what they do to cope is they do what we all do, avoiding aggression or appeasing. And that shows up like this. There's two people that don't get along with the rest of the group. One of them, maybe is of a different nationality. One of them is either older or a woman. There's something that makes them stand out. And so now it becomes a discrimination case because we haven't handled it. We haven't talked about it. We haven't been vulnerable enough to listen. And so what we do is we reorganize. Let's move these two people that get along into the basement, and we're going to call it a reorganization. And they're going to have different roles, different titles. And so it starts to feel like you're disconnected, not being heard. And if they keep going back above you to try to resolve it, and then that manager says, no, go to your manager, and there's no real addressing of the issue, it then turns into an EEOC case, or it turns into some sort of a big blowout or some sort of turnover that didn't need to happen. And it really boils down to a conversation that was avoided based on the structures of the organization. And especially if those at the top want to believe that everybody should just behave and get along and we're Stepford wives. If we are uncomfortable with the idea of conflict in sensitive areas, the more uncomfortable we are, the more we resort to coping behaviors and mechanisms.